Have you ever stopped to think about the quieter forces shaping our energy future? We often hear about the big flashy tech, right?
Mm-hmm.
But sometimes the real story, well, it's in the steady, powerful growth of sectors maybe flying a bit under the radar.
That's a great point.
So today we're doing a deep dive into one of those, the Global Biomass Energy Market. And this isn't just about, big numbers on a page.
No, not at all.
It's really about finding out where the serious growth is actually happening and what that tells us about, well, the energy world of tomorrow.
And that's exactly our mission here, to really pull out the key insights, the important bits of knowledge from the source material you've got.
Which comes from cognitive market research,
Yeah.
detailing their market outlook and growth forecast.
Right. Think of this as your shortcut to understanding a really vital sector, one that's evolving fast and honestly becoming a major player without maybe as much fanfare.
And major player really hits the nail on the head. I mean, the scale is serious. We're talking a global value of over $117 billion back in 2021.
Already substantial.
Exactly. And the projections, they show this massive surge, basically more than doubling to over $230 billion by 2033.
Wow.
That kind of growth, well, it demands attention, doesn't it? So we're here to help you see that bigger picture with us. Okay, let's unpack this a bit. Our source, Cognitive Market Research, they peg the global biomass energy market at $117.565 billion in 2021.
Right. That's our starting point.
And the forecast is, well, it's genuinely impressive. We're looking at a projected $147.1 billion by 2025.
So a decent jump in just a few years.
And then climbing to a really staggering $230.294 billion by 2033.
Okay, that's the huge leap.
Yeah. And that works out to a compound annual growth rate, the CAGR, of 5.763%, just for the period between 2025 and 2033.
What's fascinating there, I think, is just how consistent and robust that upward curve looks, globally speaking.
Right.
When we talk biomass energy, just to be clear, we're really looking at power from organic stuff, farm waste, wood pellets, even specific energy crops.
Very versatile.
Exactly. Heat, electricity, even transport fuels. So a market that's set to nearly double by 2033, it isn't just growing. It feels like a fundamental shift, wouldn't you say?
Absolutely.
It really points to this widespread, increasing global reliance on biomass. It's a clear signal towards diversifying energy sources across, well, all sorts of economies.
That global figure definitely tells a powerful story on its own. But what really jumps out from the data is that this growth isn't, spread evenly like peanut butter.
No, definitely not.
The biomass story looks quite different depending on where you are in the world. So let's break that down. Let's see where the real action is, region by region, and find some of those compelling differences.
Sounds good. Where do we start?
Let's start with North America. The market there was valued at $22.15 billion back in 2021.
Okay.
And it's projected to hit nearly $40 billion specifically, $39.15 billion by 2033. So that's a steady CAGR of 4.829%.
Steady is a good word for it.
Within North America, the U.S. obviously holds the lion's share. It grows from about $18.2 billion to over $31 billion.
Still the dominant player there.
But interestingly, Canada actually shows a slightly stronger pace of growth within the region. They go from $2.4 billion to over $4.6 billion, and that's a TAGR of 5.538%.
Slightly higher, yeah.
And Mexico also shows pretty solid expansion too, around 5% TAGR.
It's interesting that consistent, but let's say somewhat moderate growth in North America, it suggests maybe a more mature market, one that's steadily adding more biomass, but perhaps not seeing that sudden explosion you might find elsewhere.
Like layering it in rather than a big bang.
Exactly. Stable diversification in what's already a pretty established energy system.
Okay, let's hop across the Atlantic. Europe. Now, this market tells a bit of a different story.
Okay. Europe's always interesting in renewables.
Yeah, this region saw its market climb quite significantly, from roughly $44 billion in 2021
$43.969 billion.
to an estimated $83.366 billion by 2033. That's a healthy 5.51% CAGR overall for Europe.
So noticeably faster than North America's overall rate.
Right. But what really catches the eye here is Germany.
Germany.
They boast one of the highest growth rates on the continent. A 6.202% CAGR. They're effectively doubling their market from around $8.8 billion to over $18 billion.
Wow, okay. That's significant. Germany's really pushing.
Definitely. Other big players like the UK, France, they also show substantial growth.
Yeah.
UK going from 7.1 to $14 billion, France from $5 to nearly $9 billion. But Germany's pace, it just seems particularly aggressive. Spain and Sweden are also quite strong, both clocking in above 5.6% CAGR. Italy solid too, at over 5%.
Germany's high rate there, it feels like a strong indicator of, well, probably robust policy support,
I'd
right?
say so.
And maybe they're leveraging existing infrastructure they've built out for other renewables. It really highlights how these mature economies can, when they decide to, aggressively scale up something like biomass.
Good point.
And the overall European trend, getting close to doubling by 2033, it speaks volumes about a broad commitment across the continent to cut carbon footprints and diversify away from the traditional sources.
Makes sense. But the real powerhouse, in terms of sheer regional growth rate, seems to be Asia-Pacific.
Ah, yes. The numbers there are quite something.
This region shows the strongest overall growth globally. It jumps from about $31.4 billion in 2021
$31.39 billion.
to a staggering $67.706 billion by 2033. That's an impressive 6.626% CAGR overall.
That is the highest regional KGR we've seen so far.
It is. Now, China leads this surge as the largest market in pure dollar terms, going from $9.6 billion to over $21 billion.
Still a massive presence.
But it's India that truly stands out for its growth rate, a remarkably high 7.595% CAGR.
Wow, over 7.5%?
Yeah, more than doubling its market from $3.8 billion to over $9.2 billion. And we also see incredibly dynamic growth elsewhere, like Singapore, nearly 7% CAGR, and Southeast Asia as a whole, approaching 7.2% CAGR. Japan, South Korea, Australia, Taiwan, all showing strong KGRs between 5% and over 6%.
That dominant growth in Asia-Pacific, and especially India's exceptional pace, it suggests, well, a powerful mix, doesn't it?
How so?
You've got rapidly rising energy demand, obviously, combined with, likely, a huge availability of diverse organic materials, think agricultural waste, for example.
Right, the feedstock is there.
Exactly. And for many of these economies, biomass isn't just about hitting environmental targets, though that's part of it. It's often a really pragmatic, localized solution for energy security and just basic development.
So it's practical as much as green.
Very much so. It's about scale and efficiency where it's needed most. That makes it an incredibly compelling option there.
Okay, moving down south now.
Yeah.
South America. Their market is also surging, from $9.758 billion in 21 to $19.626 billion by 33.
So again, nearly doubling.
Yep, with a strong 5.985% CAGR overall. Brazil remains the biggest market down there, going from about $3.6 billion to over $7 billion.
Makes sense, given Brazil's size and agricultural sector.
But look at Argentina. They're showing particularly strong acceleration, to 6.544% CAGR.
Oh, interesting. Higher than Brazil's rate.
Yeah, growing from $1.6 billion to over $3.5 billion. Chile's also showing robust growth, just over 6% CAGR as well. Colombia's solid too.
South America's strong performance, and especially seeing countries like Argentina and Chile with those high growth rates, it really points to a clear move towards integrating renewables into their developing economies.
Yeah.
There's just significant potential for biomass there, probably driven by, abundant natural resources and just the need for new energy solutions to fuel economic expansion.
Okay, let's check in on the Middle East, also showing significant expansion.
Right. Maybe not the first place you think of for biomass, but the numbers are there.
Their market was at $6.466 billion in 2021, projected to hit $12.936 billion by 2033. That's a 5.934% CAGR.
Almost 6%. Pretty strong.
And what's notable here is the United Arab Emirates, a really high 6.554% CAGR.
The UAE. Okay, that is notable.
Yeah, more than doubling their market from $1.1 billion to over $2.4 billion. Turkey is also showing strong growth, over 6.2% CAGR, and Saudi Arabia is contributing substantially too, around 6% CAGR.
And that growth in the Middle East is particularly interesting, I agree. Obviously associated with fossil fuels.
Right.
But these strong TGRs, especially the UAEs, suggest a really strategic diversification push.
Investing beyond oil and gas.
Exactly. It shows they understand that biomass can play a crucial role in building, a more sustainable, more varied energy portfolio for their own future needs, not just for export.
Good point. Okay, last region, Africa.
Right.
The biomass energy market here rose from $3.762 billion in 2021, projected to $7.51 billion by 2033. That's a 5.31% CAGR overall.
Still solid growth, over 5%.
And South Africa seems to be leading the charge in this region. They're projected to grow from about $1.7 billion to over $3.5 billion.
Right.
That's a strong 5.844% CAGR. For them.
Okay, South Africa pushing ahead there.
Nigeria also shows significant expansion within the continent as well, around 5.5% CAGR. The rest of Africa category shows a slightly lower CAGR, around 4.5%.
Africa's consistent growth, and particularly in South Africa, it feels reflective of the continent's wider energy needs, doesn't it? And also the potential for more distributed power solutions. Biomass can be incredibly impactful for addressing energy access and reliability challenges, often using local, readily available resources. That's vital for sustained development.
Absolutely. Okay. Wow. That's a lot of numbers, a lot of regions. So let's try and synthesize this. What does all this mean? How do these figures create a clearer picture for you, our listener, about this, well, often understated energy source?
Yeah, pulling it all together, the picture is actually remarkably clear. The global biomass energy market isn't just growing, it's showing this really robust, really consistent expansion right across the board.
Every single region.
Every single region we looked at shows significant growth, no exceptions. That indicates a truly widespread commitment to, or at least adoption of, this energy source.
It's not just one or two hotspots.
Not at all. Now, those strong KGRs, particularly the ones that stand out in Asia-Pacific, like India and South America with Argentina and Chile, they highlight a really dynamic shift, an increasing reliance on biomass as a kind of foundational energy component in very diverse economies.
Right.
And that overall trajectory, starting at $117.5 billion in 2021 and heading towards over $230 billion by 2033, that's just a definitive signal, isn't it? Biomass has a growing, and I'd say entrenched, role in the global energy landscape.
It's clearly cemented its place.
Definitely. Which I think raises an important question for all of us watching this space. What can we learn from the accelerating growth we see in places like India or Germany? How might their approaches, influence future energy strategies or even investment opportunities elsewhere in the world?
That's a great question. So the core insight from this deep dive seems pretty powerful. The global biomass energy market isn't just ticking upwards. It's undergoing this really significant widespread expansion.
Absolutely.
And we're seeing these distinct, fascinating regional stories emerge from beneath that global number. It really feels like a sector that's quietly but persistently reshaping our energy future, one region at a time.
Couldn't agree more. And maybe a final thought to leave with you, the listener, building on this data.
Yeah.
Given these massive projected growth figures and the fact that it's happening everywhere, what new challenges or maybe opportunities might pop up? Thinking about things like resource management. Where does all this biomass come from sustainably?
Right, supply chains.
Exactly. Or technological innovation, making conversion more efficient, and even international cooperation, to sustain this escalating demand.
Lots to think about.
It is. So what questions does this deep dive spark for you about our collective energy future? And maybe where we might see the next big shifts in how we power our world? Welcome back to the deep dive. We're here to really pull out the key insights on complex topics for you. Today, we are diving into something pretty crucial, the biomass energy market. It's constantly evolving, definitely a big piece of the whole renewable energy picture. And, it's got major implications for hitting climate targets and energy security.
That's right. And just so you know, everything we're digging into today, it comes straight from market intelligence reports and detailed analysis by cognitive market research. Our mission here is really to boil all that down for you, pull out the most important nuggets of insight so you get a clear picture.
Okay, great. So let's unpack this. What's really pushing the growth in biomass energy globally? The sources are pointing pretty strongly to, the obvious driver first, more demand for a sustainable renewable energy. But I guess the question is, what makes biomass specifically strategic here, beyond just being green?
Well, a key part of it is how nations are realizing they can use their own waste streams, agricultural, industrial. It's not just about emissions. It's about energy independence too,
Yeah.
turning a local resource, even waste, into power. And this isn't just theory. We're seeing real investment. Countries building infrastructure, writing biomass into national energy plans.
That energy independence angle, that's interesting. Didn't immediately think of that. And okay, beyond that, another huge factor seems to be government support, right? Policies, incentives, the sources mention things like renewable energy certificates, feed-in
Oh,
tariffs.
absolutely critical. Those incentives, tax credits, grants, the tariffs you mentioned,
Yeah.
they make these projects financially viable. They really help tackle those big initial investment costs,
Mm.
which we'll definitely get to later. It basically lowers the risk and encourages utilities and industries to actually adopt biomass on a larger scale.
Right, makes sense, de-risking it. And then there's a third driver mention,
Right.
using agricultural and industrial waste itself, like forestry residues, farm byproducts, that kind of stuff.
Exactly. And this ties straight into that idea of a circular economy. You're taking organic waste, something that might otherwise be a disposal problem, and turning it into energy, usually localized energy, often quite affordable too. Plus, you're solving a waste management issue at the same time. It's quite elegant, really.
It does sound elegant, almost like a perfect loop, but are there hitches? Like, is it always easy to collect that waste, or is the quality consistent?
Yeah, that's where the ideal meets reality sometimes. It can be complex. Think about collecting farm waste spread over a wide area. Logistics can be a real challenge. And industrial waste streams. They might not always be predictable or, consistent in quality. So the principle is solid, definitely, but the how really depends on local conditions, infrastructure.
Okay, so that's the positive side, the drivers, but let's flip the coin. There have to be challenges, restraints. What are the big hurdles the market's facing? The sources mention high costs first.
Yes, the initial capital investment is significant, and the operating costs aren't trivial either. You need specialized equipment for handling and processing the biomass. You need storage, transport infrastructure,
Hmm.
and the actual feedstock processing. It all adds up. And that cost barrier, it
Yeah.
definitely makes it harder for, say, smaller companies or developing nations to jump in.
Okay, high costs. What else? The sources also bring up the supply chain itself, complexity, seasonality.
Right. That's a major one. Biomass isn't like flipping a switch on a gas pipeline.
Mm.
You're dependent on organic material, its availability, its quality.
Mm.
That can fluctuate a lot. Think agricultural seasons, weather impacting harvests, logistical snags in transport. Without really smooth, efficient infrastructure, it gets complicated and, frankly, expensive to manage that supply chain reliably. It adds a layer of risk.
Yeah, that makes sense. Which leads naturally to the next point, the environmental side and land use. I mean, it's often kind of cleaner, but there are questions, right? Large-scale biomass might compete with food crops, potential deforestation, and what about emissions from actually burning it or processing the feedstock?
Precisely. And this is where it gets quite debated globally. Is biomass truly carbon neutral? It's not a simple yes or no. You really have to look at the entire life cycle. Where did the biomass come from? How was it harvested, transported, processed? What are the combustion emissions? It demands a much more nuanced view than just saying it's renewable, so it's good.
Okay, so serious challenges to consider. But let's pivot back towards the future. There are positive trends too, right? Innovations happening. One thing mentioned is integrating biomass with CHP systems combine heat and power. What's the story there?
CHP is a really smart development. Think of it as getting more bang for your buck from the biomass. Instead of just generating electricity, these systems capture and use the waste heat as well. So you get electricity and useful thermal energy for industrial processes or heating buildings in a district heating network. It boosts the overall efficiency dramatically, makes biomass much more attractive in certain applications.
Two-for-one energy. Got it. And what about the fuel itself? Any advances there? The sources talk about second-generation biofuels being a big deal. Cellulosic ethanol, torrefied biomass.
Yes, this is really exciting stuff. We're moving beyond using food crops, which was the big criticism of early biofuels. Second-gen tech lets us use things like wood waste, agricultural residues, even municipal solid waste or algae. It tackles that whole food versus fuel problem head-on. Plus, these advanced methods like gasification or producing cellulosic ethanol often give you higher energy yields, better conversion, more efficient.
Okay, using waste streams, more efficient conversion. That sounds promising. And one final trend, using biomass for off-grid power. Rural electrification. That sounds potentially transformative.
It really is. Especially in developing regions, small-scale biomass systems can provide reliable, decentralized power. Think of areas with no grid access, or where the grid is really unreliable. Biomass offers an affordable local solution. It helps communities, reduces reliance on expensive imported fuels like diesel. And we're seeing governments, NGOs, really leveraging this, pushing small biomass projects for sustainable energy access and local empowerment.
Right. So pulling it all together, what's the big picture? The biomass energy market seems like it's definitely set for growth. You've got the renewable push, government support, these tech advances we just talked about. But, balanced against those real challenges, the cost, the supply chain issues, the environmental questions we can't ignore. It seems like the market's finding ways to innovate, though, especially where the need is greatest, like in those developing regions.
Absolutely, it's a dynamic space. Which brings us to a final thought for you, our listener, to maybe chew on. If biomass really is becoming a cornerstone of renewable energy, and if it's genuinely changing how people get power in some parts of the world, what's it going to take to unlock its full potential? How crucial are ongoing innovation, smarter policies that address those complexities, and really tackling those environmental concerns head on? And maybe more importantly, what does that mean for the global energy future that you personally will be a part of?